All right, so I want to show you guys how you can make a fairly simple animation in Photoshop, but then I also want to show you all the different options that you have once you're working with the animation tools. What I want to do is actually show you how to start and base your animation off of video footage. So maybe it's video footage that you've made on your smartphone or another device. So I opened up Photoshop and I'm simply going to go to File and Open to start this new animation file. So I'm not going to place it in here. I'm just going to open it and it's automatically going to set up the file and the format the way I want it. Just be warned that it needs to be an MP4 file. So it needs to be MP4. So if you're working with like an MOV format, you got to find a way to convert it. And there's a few ways you can do it. I did it here in iMovie, but there's a lot of other converters that will do that. But that is a requirement. You got to work with MP4 format. It's a more universal, readable format for the animation tools. So if I look over here, it should already be set, but the format should be video, okay, not any other file formats. And then once I have that, I'll click open. I'm just gonna match my profile. And then I should see something like this. If you're not seeing this, what you need to do is open the timeline. So if I go to window, I can come down and find timeline. And essentially this doubles as a layers panel, but over here on this side, this is where we preview and play video and animation. So it is the core panel for working here in Photoshop. I'm going to rescale this so it's a little bit easier to see. So for instance, I might just pull my layers up and then have my timeline come across so it's really easy to see how I'm working. And remember, you will bounce back and forth between layers and the timeline, so be prepared to do that. But if we look and we see what this file is, it's just got one layer, but if you notice, the layer has a special symbol. It's letting us know that this is a video layer. So watch this. Come over to your timeline. There's a little cursor or tracker. If you move this across, you'll basically play the video frame by frame to see what it is that we've captured. Or you can press the space bar. So it's real simple. We're going to make an animation where we really play around and tweak this video footage with our own input. So again, space bar to play and pause your footage. So the first thing I want to do is for my final animation, I do not want to work with a format or a frame that looks like this. This is like for a mobile device. I want to change this into what our projects are asking for. So I'm going to come over to the crop tool, click on crop, and then up here, I want to work with a certain ratio. So if I click on this, we could just do ratio, or we could come down to here where it says 16 by 9. This is a pretty standard movie and video format or aspect ratio. So I'm going to click on that and it's going to reset our crop frame. But then after I do that, I need to actually readjust this. Okay, I'm holding down the option key. I'm going to readjust this to get it to about where I want my animation to be. So I'll keep it in the center and maybe make it just a little bit wider. And then when I'm done, I'll hit return. So didn't do too much to our footage. And you can actually crop your footage. So if you feel like your footage includes too much, you can crop it. But eventually, we are going to turn off the visibility of our footage. Okay, so just know, if I come in here with the move tool, we can have this footage, okay, play over here on this side of the canvas so that we can animate or we can trace over frames here, and then we can pull another footage and have it be somewhere else on the canvas. But for now, I'll just keep it in the middle. The other thing I want to do, I'm making an animation. And right now, this footage, it's more high definition and there's more frames per second. So FPS. I want to change that. I don't want to be working with such a dense frame rate. Because again, it's an animation and we want a little bit of this imperfection or just this look of non-photorealism. So in your timeline panel, over here is the hamburger menu. We'll be coming to this a lot, so just get used to finding it. If I click on this, okay, I can change a lot of things regarding this video layer. So I'm gonna come over to here where it says set timeline frame rate. Pulls up another window. Look, you can see it's working with 60 frames per second. I'm gonna change that. We'll do 15. Because remember, we're gonna animate some frame by frame animations, and so 60 is too much for us to work with. I'll click OK on that. And you can see what happened here is now that we have less of a frame rate, the timeline got a little bit shorter. And our timeline is actually based on just the sheer amount of frames that are in this animation. You can change that, how it's being read, by going to the panel options and changing from frame number to time code. I'm going to keep it at frame number. So another thing I'd like to do is I want to basically set the total time for this animation right now. It's kind of difficult to do with just the footage because if I try to expand out the footage, it's not going to give me anything else to expand it with. So what I'm going to do is come over to the layers panel and I'm going to create a new layer with just solid color. So solid color, and I'm just going to choose white for now. I'll arrange it so it's below my footage. And then if you look in the timeline, look, we have layer 1, and then we have layer 2, which is just a color fill. And then this is where we can actually begin to adjust the total amount of frames in this animation. So for something like our project, we're working with like a 10-second or more animation. You got to do some math, but just think about, for every second, there's 15 frames. I would say if you're doing like a 10-second animation, which is the bare minimum, you need to set this total amount of frames up to 180. So you get like a second before and a second after. So if I look, I can kind of just pull this across and I'll just bring it out, okay, to about 180. If there's a little bit more or less, it's okay. But here we are. Now we have the total time that we should have on this animation. Let's go ahead and rename these layers too. It's a lot easier to kind of see the names and know what you're working with. So I can do that here or in the timeline, but I'm just going to call that color fill background. And then I'll rename layer 1 footage. And now that we have that, look, we got this footage in the animation. We could also, if I click on this part on the timeline, I could move this to a different time on the total animation. So maybe we don't have this start right away. Maybe we move this over and we have this start 2 seconds in. So this would give us time for, let's say, a title or an intro, set of frames before we transition into here. So something smart we probably want to do. So I'm going to start mine at 2.5 seconds. We're almost set up to where we can actually begin animating, tracing frames. But one thing I want to set up is what's called the onion skin. So when we play this animation, it's very nice because we can see it in live real time. But as we're tracing and as we're like referencing things, if you notice this ball bouncing, it started up high and then it left, the person's fingers. So it's kind of moving in this direction. So as it moves in a direction, we would know that we need to actually animate this portion here, and then right before it hits the ground. That's what makes it look like it's moving. But sometimes it's good to see the frame that happened before this particular frame and the frame that happens after. And so we want to activate what's called onion skin. Kind of a funny name, but it's the ability to see the frame before your current frame and then after your current frame. So I'm going to come back to the hamburger menu, click on this, and then I'll look for this onion skin settings. All right, so here's what we want to do. We want to have a frame before and one frame after. You can always change this. You can make this 3 frames before and 3 frames after. I would start with something small like 1 because it's hard to actually visually track this sometimes. So I would keep it small at first. You can also space them out more. So right now we just have 1 frame of spacing. We could have it be 2 frames of spacing. The opacity, this is an important one. We could say the maximum amount of opacity that we can see is something like 50%. I like to actually make this as low as I can visually detect. So the max for me is about 30, and the minimum, I could probably work with about 15% of opacity before I just can't see it anymore. You can also change what's called the blend mode, but be careful because multiply will make things darker. You could keep it at normal, and then you'll be able to see it a little bit more because it's just adjusting the opacity. So it's up to you. I'm going to click OK on that. And the other thing is you can turn this on and off right here. So enable onion skins. If I turn that off, it's just going to play like a regular footage or video. If I turn it back on, now I see the onion skins. And what you need to make sure is that you can differentiate between the current frame, which is here, and these ones. Right now, they're getting a little too similar. So I'm going to go back to the onion skin settings and see if I can, I guess, play around with that opacity a little bit more. See if 20% is maybe a little bit better for the minimum, or I'm sorry, the maximum, and then I'll do 10 for the minimum. So there, I like that a little bit better. I'll click OK on that. All right, so we are so close to being able to begin animating on this, but we do not want to animate on our footage layer because this is like a reference layer. We don't want to animate on the background. We want to know actually how to create new layers that we can use for animation. Now, typically, a lot of tutorials like to show adding a lot of individual layers and somehow like squeezing them or stacking them together. But Photoshop actually has a built-in layer that will allow you to keep it pretty simple as long as you choose this correct layer. So we're going to try to work with that method instead. So I'm going to come up here to layer. I'm going to go down to here where it says video layers. And just look right here, video layers. We have a new video layer from file. This is if we wanted to bring in more footage. Okay, so you can bring in multiple footage files in here and then begin arranging them. Or we can choose this one, which is a new blank video layer. This is the one we want to work with. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to add it to the top of your stack. Now remember, you can arrange this however you'd like. So I might want to arrange this so it's starting just before my footage. This I'll leave blank. This is the very beginning of the video. This is where I might put just like an opening title. Okay, but this one right here, this is what I'm going to use to animate the ball. Okay, so we're going to try to animate this ball bouncing. We can change the name of the layer to ball, but now we have lots of options for working like this. One thing I'm going to do for the video footage is I'm going to drop the opacity on that video footage just a little bit more. Again, whatever you can tolerate and what you can see as far as the onion skins is going to work the best. All right, so now we are set up to start animating.